Everybody notices.
Oh, they did. Okay. Right over there in the corner.
Oh, nice and light, huh?
You gotta find your niche. You know, do what you're good at. Good to see you, man. You left me. Where did you go? How did I lose that?
Eric?
Go, go, go.
Whatever that is.
Not quite to as normal as I am, whichever that is.
Anyway.
But you had to wait a long time to get in.
I had to wait a long time to get in, and then
And they took all those tests.
yeah, and the ultrasound machine started acting out. It didn't work right. It was like just one of those things. I did get high hopes for the
I think when you whisper to me, oh, they didn't do this and then I look smart. So it's all good.
And besides the fact that you have me under cover laughing, I have to cover up and hide my face to laugh. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? I'm not so nice sometimes. I got the bad side of it.
But you're fun though.
Right after the presentation,
see you twice a month. I can tell. But your husband doing all these things.
I'd like to call to order our regular city commission meeting for May the 2nd, 2017. We have the roll call, please.
Commissioner Battle? Here. Commissioner Drosky?
Here.
Commissioner Parnes?
Here.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Here.
Mayor Gantz?
Here. If we'd like everyone to stand for a moment of silence, please, and then the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Like approval of the City Commission meeting minutes for April 19th, 2017.
Motion to approve those?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? Approved 5-0. Unanimously, acknowledgement of the city board minutes for community appearance board meeting minutes for March 22nd, 2017. Community Redevelopment Agency meeting minutes for March 13th, 2017. And Code and Compliance meeting minutes for March 14th, 2017.
I make a motion to acknowledge those minutes.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Passed unanimously 5-0. Approval of the City Commission meeting agenda for May 2nd, 2017.
Mayor, that would also include item 12B, 12A, 12B as amended, and item 14.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the agenda for tonight with those additions and amending.
We have a motion and a second. Can we, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Seeing no nays, it's passed 5-0. Presentations now. Vice Mayor Miller, I believe this is your doing.
Is Sheriff here?
Fine.
He's about 5 minutes away.
So why don't we skip number one for a minute?
Okay. We're going to go ahead and move down to number 3, if that's possible, in our agenda, and we can backtrack back up. We have a proclamation here. Thank you. We're going to the dogs here in Deerfield, apparently. That's good to know. It's excellent. I don't see anybody getting nervous in the front row, so that's good. That is a drug-sniffing dog, so if we see you exiting, officers, meet him in the back, please.
Any members of the audience who leave would be suspect, yeah.
I'd like to move on to item number 3 with the presentation that we have. We are fortunate here in the city of Deerfield Beach, and while we have always had this location here in the city, this is the first time we actually have their official headquarters here now. But on April of 2017, it marks the date that Sun Sentinel officially relocated their main headquarters to Deerfield Beach. And the Sun Sentinel has occupied 384,000 square feet in Deerfield Beach since 1989, putting its print operation and ad design portions of the advertising at this location. It made good business sense to locate all their operations at Deerfield Beach, as the location was underutilized and renting additional space. The timing was perfect for the staff to relocate and have the majority of their employees in one location. And many other benefits for this move includes ample parking, updated interiors, in-house cafeteria, the ease of commute from I-95, convenient access to the Tri-Rail, and the ease of collaboration from having the majority of staff under one roof. I would add that exiting downtown Fort Lauderdale is not a bad thing either, and considering the traffic. Deerfield Beach locations position the Sun Sentinel to geographically serve South Florida readers and advertisers. Sun Sentinel Media Group reaches an audience of more than 1.4 million people through award-winning print and digital products, an array of niche products and deliver customized marketing solutions to businesses throughout the Tri-County area. The city of Deerfield Beach is particularly proud that the Sun Sentinel has chosen this as their headquarters and is committed to providing support and encouragement of collaborative partnerships that will further promote exceptional business opportunities. On behalf of the city of Deerfield Beach, we'd like to make this proclamation. Whereas April 2017 marks the date the Sun Sentinel officially relocated their main headquarters to Deerfield Beach, and whereas the Sun Sentinel has occupied a space in Deerfield Beach since 1989, now therefore I, Bill Gans, Mayor of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, in recognition thereof, do hereby proclaim May 2nd, 2017 as Sun Sentinel Day. Thank you and welcome. Sure.
Squeeze it nice and tight, facing me. Oh,
Rebecca.
there we go. This way. Go on in nice and tight, just a little.
I thought that was a cheek panting over there.
There it is. There we go. Hold it there.
Thank you so much. Welcome. This is another great sense of pride for the city of Deerfield Beach. For this next item, we're moving on to the item number 4 in our presentations. Certificate of Appreciation presented to the Historical Society and city staff on relocating and restoring the 1951 Seaboard Airline caboose. Back in 2000, Bill Munsenmeyer decided to call William Thies and Sons in Wilton Manors to see if they're willing to donate a 1951 Seaboard caboose that he'd seen on the property for several years. Dale Allen and Ed Dietrich with the Historical Society continued negotiations and obtained the caboose in 2011. The caboose was relocated to Hillsborough Boulevard and Dixie Highway, where it sat for almost 15 years. In 2015, Ed contacted Jeff Anderson, the owner of Store All, located here in Deerfield Beach and at the old Deerfield Beach Lumber Yard property, and requested permission for the Historical Society to move the caboose to this property so that the restoration work could be done. In early 2016, the caboose was relocated and restoration began. The following are just a few of the companies responsible for the restoration of the caboose: Allegiance Crane, MWI, Emerald Towing, Show Paints, Store All Inc., and FEC Railway. Key personnel without whom this project would not have been a success are Bill Munsenmeyer, Dan Bogner, Ed Dietrich, Charlie DeBrusco, Dennis Badd, Joe Williams, Patrick Jennings, and Dana Eller. Finally, there are several city departments involved throughout the construction process, and that is the Office of the City Manager, Construction and Facilities Management, Environmental Services Street Department, Parks and Recreation, Sustainable Management, Fleet Department, Broward Sheriff's Office, the Police Department, the Broward Sheriff's Office Fire Department, Public Affairs, and the Marketing Department. These certificates that we are handing out tonight are a certificate of appreciation from the City of Deerfield Beach. The City of Deerfield Beach applauds you for your hard work and dedication, which resulted in restoring and relocated our 1951 Seaboard Airline caboose. And those of you who have seen what we have out here in front of the old schoolhouse, it's something it's an incredible piece and a wonderful addition for the City of Deerfield Beach. On behalf of the City of Deerfield Beach, we thank you. We would like to thank Mr. Joe Williams, Charles DeBrusco, Dan Bogner, Ed Dietrich, and Bill Munsenmeyer. Can you please come forward? stick.
Let's get everyone nice and tight.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Bowder, we're gonna have to time come forward.
Gentlemen, come on up.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm figuring about 2 more years and you're done.
He's making ugly faces.
That's easy.
They like each other's.
One more.
All right.
We also figured we'd spike your evening as well.
Thank you. Charlie DeBrusco made these for everybody. Yes. Thank you, Charlie. Very nice.
Thank you. Joe, thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, sir, some vampires in the audience.
That's it.
Oh. You ready for number 2? Number 1. You want number 2?
Can I do that?
We are awaiting the sheriff's arrival. At that time, while we wait, we're going to head to move over to the presentation regarding our Pioneer Grove presentation. We have Eric Powers, the head of Planning and Development Services, and make the presentation.
That's me. Good evening. I just wanted to take a little bit of time tonight to bring you up to date on the current status of the Pioneer Grove project, where we've been, where we're at, and what's going to happen next. So just the presentation overview tonight is we're going to discuss, what is Pioneer Grove, for those of us who don't remember, the audience, of course, actions taken to date, the vision and design guidelines, which is going to be brought forward to you next month for review, and then, of course, what will be coming next. So what is Pioneer Grove? So Pioneer Grove is an idea that was created a few years back. This is the geographic location in the red lines. It's approximately 120 acres of land, and it's being rezoned. There's several different zoning districts and land uses right now, from industrial to residential. It's all being rezoned in what's called the Local Activity Center, or the LAC. And that's an area where you can think of everything as just a giant pot of uses. You can use anything you want that's within the area. And we went to Broward County and the state of Florida for approval. And we also just received that approval, which is why we're coming back to you now. So what have we done so far? Well, a few years back, the city worked with the APA to create what was called a CPAT study, which is the origin or the genesis of the Pioneer Grove project. And we also met with the city, residents. We created a website which is available for review of what Pioneer Grove is. We submitted, of course, to the county and state, and we are in the process of creating an infrastructure master plan. So the infrastructure master plan is a very important element of Pioneer Grove, as it's going to tell us exactly the improvements that we can make structurally for drainage, lighting, landscaping, utilities, and things of that nature. And that'll be something that we'll be using as we go forward to help us with that, with the redevelopment. So whenever you create something like an LAC, you need to have guidelines. You need to have a vision in place that we all agree to and we hold to, and we want everyone to be uniform and consistent. And in order to be successful, in order to make Pioneer Grove successful, we're going to adhere to certain standards. And those standards are the following. We're going to incorporate an historic aspect to the area. Pioneer Grove will, have a remembrance to the time in which Deerfield first began. It'll also have a consistent design theme. We're going to provide for walkable connected pathways, not just within Pioneer Grove, but outside of Pioneer Grove to its existing parkways. And we're also going to require that there be consistent lighting as well as consistent landscaping. So when you have other local activity centers in South Florida, I mean, there's Palm Beach, Delray, Coconut Grove, a lot of these places that exist within South Florida, and they all have a very consistent theme, which is the beach. Hey, we're Deerfield Beach, right? Everyone has a consistent theme. But what we decided was that in reviewing the original CPAT study, there was something that came back several times, which was the old heart of Deerfield Beach. Dixie and Hillsborough is the old heart of Deerfield Beach. It's where Deerfield began. So what does that mean? And we took that as inspiration, not just on the actual timeline, the 1890s, when the first settlers began here in Deerfield, but what was that like for them at that time? And that is decided that we need to be visually different. In order for Pioneer Grove to stand out, and in order for Pioneer Grove to be successful, we have to be different than what the other local activity centers are in this area. And so what does that mean? So essentially what I'm going to show you tonight are a couple photographs and images of other areas within the country that have similar architectural design that we're going to be looking for and looking forward for you to approve next month. So in order to be visually different, we need to state a few things. Uses of different materials. So here in Florida, again, stucco, very, very popular. We're going to try and stay away from that. We want to use things like brick, wood or composite wood, metals, and things of that nature. We want to go back to the traditional black and green window dressings that were very popular at the turn of the century. And we want to have an absence of a pitched roof. This is going to be an important element of Pioneer Grove, that we're not going to have a pitched or tiled roof on most of our projects. So here's just another example of what that might look like. So some more examples is corner elements. If you're a building that's on a corner, we're going to ask that corner be visually different, that it have some type of design that's going to be different. We're going to ask again for more than one material, and again the use of windows and the absence of a pitched roof. So another example would be this design here. We're going to try to utilize the roof in a way that doesn't occur here in South Florida right now. We want patrons of the building to be able to utilize the roof, whether it's for a restaurant, personal leisure, green roofs, things of that nature. So some other elements are wood and metal. We would like wood and metal to be incorporated in Pioneer Grove. Those are elements that were used at the turn of the century. So they're good for outdoor areas. We would like to see exposed columns, not necessarily the actual exposed column, because structurally that'd be difficult, but resemblances of the exposed columns. Green walls could be used as an architectural feature. And so we got a lot of these design concepts and ideas from the historical relevance that exists in Deerfield Beach. Having only been here in the city for a year, I was amazed on how many historical references and how many historical exhibits we actually have just right here. We have several properties that you can go and research. My staff spent some time at the Butler House with Amy and learning about the all the different things that occurred in Pioneer Grove. One of the things that we learned is that there's actually an historic trail that was created about a decade ago, where you could actually go and walk and see some of these historic elements. We'd like to bring that to life. So my staff right now is working on a map that will bring reference to all the historical elements that are within Pioneer Grove and immediately outside the Pioneer Grove area. And we're going to require that the applicants, when they come in to develop properties, that they make sure that part of their design is going to be incorporating that historical aspect. So instead of saying, well, you have to do public art, which is a very common theme here in South Florida, we're going to say you need to do an historical element. You need to be able to provide some type of reference to what occurred on your property. And so an example could be, you could take an historical walk. You can go on an historical trail. This is just an idea where I could be at Pioneer Park and I could take a walk and learn about the history of Deerfield Beach walking throughout Pioneer Grove. So walkability is a very major aspect of Pioneer Grove. It's a requirement of the LAC, and we want to incorporate that, not just within Pioneer Grove, but outside the area. There are approximately 4 or 5 parks that you could actually walk to within the Pioneer Grove area. So we want to make sure that you have those connection points. We want to make the connection points visually different so that it's safe and you understand. And we don't want to just use regular white striping. We want to try and incorporate a design element that would be relevant to Pioneer Grove and the historical elements of it, while also making it safe and understand that you're going to cross at certain points. We want lighting to be referenced back to, again, to the turn of the century. LED lights is the future, and LED lights will, of course, be a part of Pioneer Grove, but we want the actual materials themselves to look as if they were gas lamp lights or lights from 100 years ago. The Edison light was a very popular light back then. And that's kind of getting a comeback. We like to see that type of light here, too. So native landscaping is another important element. 100 years ago, when the residents of Deerfield Beach first came here, there was no date palms, right? There was just regular landscaping. This is a beautiful image of what native landscape in Florida looks like, and we'd like to take elements of this and incorporate it into Pioneer Grove. We would use native palmettos, and sage, and native trees and things of that nature, but we would try to limit the amount of palm trees and other exotic trees or fruit trees that have come into the area over time, because we want to try to give that look and feel of what this area would have looked like 100 years ago. One of the elements of that is, I think, somewhat unique, we're going to try to incorporate that could really make a difference here in Pioneer Grove, is we would like to incorporate wildflowers. Wildflowers do exist in South Florida. The state of Florida has a website that lists all the wildflowers in Florida and their regions and growth. And we'd like to utilize wildflowers in lieu of, say, shrubbery, or in lieu of, say, your sidewalk curb appeal. We would require that there be a particular type of wildflower in bloom for every season, so there's always something going on. But we really think this would be a nice niche for Pioneer Grove to have wildflowers, and it would really enhance and beautify the when you're walking throughout the Pioneer Grove area. We also think we would like to incorporate rocks and boulders within the landscaped areas. Not so you can trip over them, but in the landscape areas, it's appeal. Again, 100 years ago, people didn't move rocks and boulders; they just walked around them. So we think that would add some elements to it. As far as street trees are concerned, this is an example of a project that we'd like to do, where you can see that the building itself is virtually at the property line. You have a sidewalk, you have a strip of landscaping, and then you have the road itself. That's a walkable street curb. That's an image that we're looking at. And so that the street trees themselves would be right there on the road. Not necessarily what you would see here in South Florida now, where you see a large field of sod and then a tree, and then sod and tree. We're going to try and stay away from sod as much as possible in this situation. So here's another example of what that might look like. You'll see a landscape strip of trees. And again, another example of that. And one of the things that this can benefit through is something called green infrastructure. So green infrastructure there's gray infrastructure, which is your pipes and your drains that we build. And then green infrastructure is the way that nature drains the water. So we would like to try and incorporate native areas to drain first. So instead of draining right to the drain, you're going to drain the water to the landscape strip. It's going to not only give the contaminated water, because water gets contaminated when it rains, it picks up oil and dirt and grease and things like that. Native landscaping has the ability to try and give that initial cleaning. So we're not only going to try and help the environment in that way, but it also helps with the drainage situation. When we do that, we're allowed to increase the building footprint. So one of the ways we're going to try to benefit developers for coming into Pioneer Grove is they're going to get a larger footprint than what they might normally get somewhere else in Deerfield Beach, or they might normally get somewhere else in South Florida, really. And one of the ways we can do that is by incorporating this green infrastructure, incorporating this drainage. Just another example of what we call a tree pit or a tree well. And one of the things that we need to do is we're going to create an ordinance. And the ordinance is going to have guidelines. But as we all know, and I read ordinances every single day, you've got some before you tonight, ordinances aren't always the easiest things to understand. So we're also going to create a companion. We're going to create design guidelines. The design guidelines will be approved by resolution through this board as a one-time reading. The design guidelines can only be modified or changed or amended by the commission. And just an example of what they're going to look like, we're trying to incorporate some of our current elements along with some of the old elements. This will be a handout. It'll be available online. It'll be available at the counter. It'll give everyone an understanding of what it is they can and cannot do within the Pioneer Grove area. So just following up, what's next? At the next commission meeting on 5/16, you'll be seeing the second reading of the land use plan amendment. You saw the first reading last year, and that's when it went to the county, and then it's when it went to the state. Now it's coming back down to you. And then at the 2 hearings in June, you'll be seeing the first reading of the ordinance. And at the second hearing in June, you'll be seeing the second reading of the ordinance along with the resolution for the design guidelines. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioner, have any questions? Commissioner Bell?
Now, you probably came to this podium knowing tonight that I was going to have some questions. I have said repeatedly that I do not want this city to move Pioneer Grove along and leave Dixie Highway out. I know that we have something out there that we're supposed to be talking about Dixie one way or the other. But some of the same things that you've said for Pioneer Grove need to apply across Dixie. And I didn't hear that come across from you. The center of activity or the loci or whatever was right there, Dixie Highway. When you went across the tracks, you had a couple of homes or whatever the case may be, but that wasn't until later because the Bahamians, when they came here, they located and most of the early pioneer people were on this side of the track. And again, what I'm hearing then is that we're moving along, and I don't even know where this trail is. Is there somebody that lived here all their life like me who know about this historical trail one way or the other? I've never heard of such a thing. Yeah. And so it's something that the Historical Society picked up on, and I'm very proud of that and pleased with that. But it seems to me that we're moving along with Pioneer Grove, and Dixie Highway is just sitting there. Some of these same things we could have told or we could have put into our directive or our, not into the zoning, but into our RFP, that these are the type things that we want to see along the Dixie Highway corridor as well. What I'm afraid of now is that we're going to get to a point and we're going to be doing like one citizen said, basically wasting $60,000. If we have all this work already done one way or the other, it just seems to me that very prudently we could have been working in concert with the Dixie Highway Neighborhood Group, and we would be much further along and might not have to expend $60,000 on, you see where I'm going?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Commissioner, these items are being reviewed with the DVR district as well. Vicki Placide Picard and Chris Moore and myself, we work together to ensure that when we get the DVR zoning district moving forward, that it's going to be incorporated. It really has to be. They're across the street from each other. We're really hoping that when Pioneer Grove starts to kick off, it's going to spread, and the next place it's going to spread is the DVR district, which is right across the street where the vacant land is.
But just indulge me one other minute. But you see where we are. How many years? 25 years or more. Dixie has been sitting there. And now we have all this activity basically on Pioneer Grove, basically, and Dixie is still doing what? Sitting there. So I need something coming from staff that shows me that Dixie is moving. That's where I am on this, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the commission like to comment? Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes, to my fellow commissioner, I think this project is going to be an incredible incentive to move across the street, and it's going to benefit the west side of Dixie Highway like no other project this has ever happened in the city. And as we have a study and we want to talk about, do we want the exact same theme or something similar? But you're not going to beautify and make this as nice as it all looked in this presentation and then just leave that blank. No, this is going to be the best thing that's happened to Dixie Highway we've started here. So to have this and then talk about developing and rezoning potentially the Dixie Highway corridor, this is going to take this from being a sleepy, nothing happened lots of land to correlate with this. I think it would be total wisdom for it to match and be a collaborative effort. So
I just want it in writing, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Anyone else from the commission like to speak on the matter? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Very good report, Eric.
We're going to step back to our, I'm sorry, City Manager, do you have anything else? Okay. We're going to move forward then with our rest of our presentations. Vice Mayor Miller, item number 1 is yours.
Yes, I'd like to call the sheriff of this great county, Scott Israel, because he'd like to present you with a certificate.
So, Sheriff.
Good evening, Deerfield Beach.
Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, Commissioners, I'm excited to be here tonight. New commission, 2 new folks on, person moving to mayor, and we're excited about it downtown. We have a great working relationship, and it's going to continue, and we don't take it lightly that we're your vendor of police and fire. We protect Deerfield Beach and enhance your quality of life, and we take that very seriously, and we thank you for using the Broward Sheriff's Office. And these men and women are the most outstanding people in public safety you could have, so thank you for what you do. So I want to take you back to January 26th of this year. At that time, Mayor Gans was Commissioner Gans. And we all, as elected officials, know what it is to run for office. We know what it is to go from place to place to place. I myself have been involved in 6 elections in my lifetime, and I know the taxing that it does to you, your family. So while Commissioner Gans was campaigning to be mayor and had all the, his family, his professional life, being a commissioner and running for mayor, he still had time to perform as a citizen and exhibit his civic duty. Mayor, if not for you, a young 4-year-old child who was reported missing could have possibly perished because he was inside a car, asleep. Eventually he woke up, but this child put himself, as a 4-year-old will do, in harm's way because of your attention to detail and and caring more about others than you did about yourself. You were able to listen, to care, to notify Captain Schnackenberg, and because of that, we were able to, save the life of a 4-year-old. Thank you, Mayor. If I might, I don't think you're going to have a problem with this, but I'd like to read a proclamation from me in the Broward Sheriff's Office to you. And it basically it's a certificate of commendation to Mr. Bill Gans because we consider you a citizen that day. You are the mayor, but that day you were acting as a citizen. For your commitment to community and public safety and your extraordinary efforts in saving a child's life. From signed by me this date. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager, I just want to let you know that I've gotten called by so many calls from a lot of the folks in Deerfield Beach and other places around the county regarding the airport and the issues at the airport. I want to take care of one order of business, but I'm here today. I don't want to take the meeting any longer. But if there are any questions from the dais, from you, Mr. Manager, or the citizens, I'm here to speak about anything regarding the Broward Sheriff's Office. But I do want to, he doesn't know I'm going to do this right now, but the amazing Lieutenant Darrell Stallings a few weeks ago had a medical issue outside. And is Rusty Sievers here tonight, Fire? Well, because of the work of your 2 chiefs, your chief of fire, Rusty Sievers, and the amazing work of Captain Rob Schnackenberg, we have Darrell Stallings with us today. So I wanted to publicly thank Captain Schnackenberg. And Chief Severs, and you know, it's funny. Lately, we have so many issues going on around the nation, and as the lead law enforcement person in Broward County, I would be the first to say that at times police officers, firefighters make mistakes, no more or no less than any other industry on earth. But 99% of the men and women who gravitate towards this profession excel on a daily basis. The people that work for us at Deerfield Beach select Deerfield Beach because of you all, because of the citizens, and we take that responsibility very seriously. And Commissioner Battle, we love being your public safety agency, and we're not going to allow that to ever change. If there are any questions about anything other than that, I'll sit back and allow you to get on with business.
Anyone from the dais have any questions for the sheriff? Sheriff, we're going to allow someone from the public that has a question to come up to the podium.
Absolutely. Respectfully, when I answer, I put my back to you.
Absolutely.
Denise Bogner, 1157 Southwest 26th Avenue. What I would like to point out, when the police officer had an issue here at a commission meeting, it was due to one of our citizens, Penny Frantello. She happened to be on the phone. He fell into the bush right next to her, and she was the one that ran in and got the fire chief to go out and help. So once again, as Bill Gantz was in the right place at the right time, Penny Frantello was also. So we thank her too.
Absolutely.
I didn't mean to omit anyone who performed like that. I was unaware of that, but what I'll ask is Captain Stackenberg or staff if we could develop the same type of commendation for her. She certainly, thank you for bringing that to our attention, and we certainly want to acknowledge her.
Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate it. I don't think anyone realizes that was a nerve-wracking night enough to be the first to be sworn in as mayor that night, and realizing at that same time that we had one of our own in dire medical emergency right outside our doors. And I want to applaud all of our staff for the way they handled it. We were able to conduct the meeting without any of you knowing. And if it was not for the actions of Ms. Frantello and Chief Severs and Chief Schnackenberg, we would not have Darrell with us. So we were very grateful, and I thank all of staff for their swift action. I believe the city manager was the one who grabbed some medical equipment that helped the process along. So this was a group effort, and I applaud them. So thank you.
You know what? Mr. Mayor, you're absolutely right, and I'll tell you something else about the city manager. The city manager is a huge proponent of making sure that real-time information that is discoverable by law enforcement gets out to the public, because you never know where someone will be and what place and what time they'll be in. So Burgess, I want to commend you for having that attitude and that foresight to make sure that the mayor's programs and the commissioner's programs about relating things to the public, because you're our eyes and ears out there, and it helped out. So again, thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. We do have one other presentation, and it does regard the Broward Sheriff's Office. The Deerfield Beach Tactical Deployment Team was created on March 13, 2016, with the intention of being a 90-day ad hoc task force which was tasked with targeting and suppressing gang activity, street-level crime, and quality of life issues through proactive enforcement and community policing. In the pursuit of this goal, TDT members developed invaluable relationships with community members and business owners to collectively identify problem areas and effectively address quality of life issues. The proactive patrol resulted in the deterrent of crime and the arrest of prolific criminal offenders. Because of TDT's exceptional performance, far surpassed projected expectations, the district elected to activate the team indefinitely. An analysis of this team's productivity statistics since activation only 9 months ago has proven highly impressive. Nearly 700 arrests, over 400 uniform traffic citations, over 400 field interview cards, 10 firearms seized, 12 vehicles seized, over $10,000 confiscated, 8 nominations for Deputy of the Month, 2 life-saving awards, and as a result, the TDT team was recognized by the Broward Sheriff's Office with the Unit of the Year Award. Please join the City of Deerfield Beach and this commission in applauding the work of this team. Sergeant Floyd Baker, Deputy Leonard Seedig, Deputy Derek Diaz, Deputy Rocco Ineo, Deputy Danny Polo, and Sonny the dog.
Why are you afraid to come up here?
Right there, right next to Gloria.
Got the smile, Floyd.
What's the best thing?
Hold it.
Thank you.
That is my.
Thank you.
Battle, thank you. Thank you.
We'll give a few minutes for everyone to clear out. If the commission would allow me, and give me the opportunity to make a statement, and I think it's important, I'm sure that the rest of the commission feels the same way regarding this, but I do want to clarify something regarding the town of Hillsborough Beach and the lawsuit that's been filed against us. It's disappointing that the town of Hillsborough has decided to sue our city over matters related to beach erosion. I'm not going to comment on the merits of the case, and I have the utmost confidence in our legal representation and therefore do not believe in trying this case in public. Apparently, this principle, though, is not held in the same regard by the representatives from the town of Hillsborough Beach. I feel compelled to clarify a major inaccuracy stated by Mayor Deborah Tarrant. She is quoted as blaming our city for the failure of the parties to reach an agreement in an amicable fashion. As quoted in the Sun Sentinel, she stated that all hope of an agreement went out the window when we hired a litigator. I was astonished at this erroneous declaration. So here are the facts. First, on July 8th, 2015, without any previous communication from town officials, we received a letter from a lawyer for the town of Hillsborough Beach, which proclaimed in its first sentence that it wanted to inform the city and the Attorney General of the intent by the town of Hillsborough Beach to file a lawsuit against the city of Deerfield Beach with regard to the revetment groins on our public beach. The letter was written pursuant to Chapter 120.69 Florida statutes. The reason this letter was sent was that Hillsborough Beach would not be able to sue us unless they would file such a letter. Clearly, as you can see, who had litigation in mind from the very, very beginning. Second, Hillsborough Beach invoked the procedures of Chapter 164 Florida statutes. Chapter 164 provides procedures that are required to be undertaken before one municipality can sue another. The proceedings are meant to bring the parties together to settle the matter, but all parties must act in good faith during the process to avoid litigation. Again, I am confident and I know that our legal team offered several reasonable solutions to avoid costly and, quite frankly, unnecessary litigation. There is only one reason to enter into Chapter 164 proceedings, and that is the intention to sue if you do not get your desired outcome. Finally, the town has now filed suit against the city of Deerfield Beach. I would caution Mayor Tarrant that when speaking about aggressive or litigious behavior, that she remembers that it was her town that fired the first shot, the second shot, and most recently the third shot. We stand ready to take the appropriate action to protect our coastal habitat, wildlife, residents, and financial interest of our local economy. As we have done for the past several decades with previous town commissions, we are always open to finding joint solutions that serve the best interests of our shared obligations to the environment and our taxpayers. Thank you. City Attorney, you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I just would recommend that at that point that the letter speak for itself and we not have any discussion on the litigation.
Thank you very much.
The next item are the quasi-judicial.
Yes.
There's only one quasi-judicial application. It's Ocean Breeze 777. All persons who are going to speak, would you please raise your right hand so I can swear you in? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God? Is the applicant here? If the applicant would step forward and indicate whether they wish to waive the quasi-judicial proceedings with the understanding that you'll be able to present your full case, the public will then be heard, and then you'll be able to conclude, but there will not be a quasi-judicial hearing.
We want to make a small presentation, yes.
Do you, but are you prepared to waive the quasi-judicial process?
Sure.
Yes, okay. And you are?
Your name and record for the...
Jack Hawk, architect, 125 Northeast 2nd Avenue, Deerfield Beach.
Thank you.
Hello? Can I just distribute something here real quick? Just so I have the public speaker in the world. So read along with me. Can one of you guys share? Yeah, I know. Wow. Okay, so this is Ocean 20. It's, I think, in a very highly visible area on A1A, the A1A corridor as you get off of Hillsborough Boulevard. Heading to A1A, you make a right-hand turn. It's going to be a very visible building. We're excited about this project, and let me go through this. The project owners, Dan Radisson and Randy Degler, are here tonight if you want to speak to them. Mr. David Reich is their project consultant, and he knows a lot of legal issues. We believe it's a very prestigious location. It's a combination of two existing lots that have two existing single-family residences on them now. The lots are 50 foot by 140 foot. We're going to combine the two and have a 100 foot wide by 140 foot deep lot. It abuts directly to the city's parking lot, which is directly to the to the east. We are proposing 8 units. We are technically allowed to have 9 units. They are approximately 1,400 square foot each. We've met the requirements for lot coverage, maximum floor area ratio, minimum landscape area, maximum building height. The building is pushed to the east as much as possible, which is up against the parking lot. Provides a little more green space in the front, which I think is beneficial to the city. Provides a better view of the building as you come off of A1A and as you look at it, and provides a turnaround that the fire department wants for anybody inadvertently driving onto the site, as well as fire department vehicles. We are parking all cars except for 3 underneath the building. Unfortunately, due to a couple things, one of the factors is that it is a very small site with respect to an RM25 site. So we're asking for 3 building setback variances. One in the rear, which is basically up against the parking lot, which we feel like would be best to push the building back as far as possible. We meet the minimum requirements, but we don't meet the additional requirements due to the height restrictions. We're also we're having 2 variances on the sides, one to the north and one to the south. We pushed the building to the north as much as possible, as the patron to the north is part of our development team, Dan Radisson, and it'll be up against his property. He has no issue with that. The problem with the side variances on a project of this side is that the requirements for setbacks would be 27 foot 6 inches times 2, which is both sides. We have a 100-foot wide lot that gives us 45 feet to work with. By the time you take 2 feet for the exterior walls and a tenant separation partition and an interior wall, you're going to end up with about 10 foot 6 inch rooms on the inside, which is not financially feasible. You could go to 4 units, but I think 2,800 square feet on that site directly abutting the parking lot is not viable because of the sales costs. These units should be sold for around $800,000, and I think to double that number isn't viable. So we had 2 additional variances which are required. We pushed the pool towards the parking lot, which we felt like nobody would have an objection to, since no one will even know that it's there. And secondly, we need an emergency sidewalk out of the stairwell on the north side, as it encroaches into the 5-foot continuous landscape buffer. But we do have the 30% landscape requirement made. We think it's a very nice project. We think it's I have a picture of it. I don't know if you have that. But we think it'll be
Any further comments, Mr. Howard?
no, that's it at this time.
Question or comments from the commission first before we go to the public?
We'll be speaking after the public also, right?
Yes, we will. Commissioner Babel?
Yes, I think you might have hit on my question when I looked at all your variances, and my concern was how are we going to make sure that those lots that you abut to on the city side, how are we going to make sure that none of your residents or their friends will be parking in those 3, I believe it's 3 slots, 3 or 2 slots? And I think you might have answered it when you said something about the pool, but I didn't get the.
Well, we have a privacy wall that will surround the entire space. Okay, so there's no way. I mean, if one of our residents did park in the city lot, he'd have to walk all the way around. Not to say that he didn't. Of course, he'd have to pay too for the fees. So
right, that was my concern.
It's going to be too cheap to do that. But we do have 3 parking spaces up front that are exposed, that are not underneath the building.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission or comments from the commission before we do this? Before I open it up to the public, I'll just state, I have a lot of concerns in granting these types of variances, especially in this area. While I do feel being up against the parking lot, it does make a difference on that. I do have some concerns with that. With that said, anyone from the public like to comment on this project? Hi. Name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Matt Walt. I live at 180 Southeast 20th, which is the Lacote condominium, which is just south adjacent to the property right next to it. And I'm representing the board. I have letters from the other people that are on the board.
Thank you.
And we're all basically in favor of it. We've seen, they've come to us and presented all the information about how the structure would be and what it would look like. And it looks like a very progressive thing to do. And I actually was looking at the information about the setbacks on the sides and such like that. And I actually went out and looked at how the individual homes that are on the spot right now that's next to us is actually closer than what they're talking about putting the building in the dimensions that they're putting it in. So, I mean, if you've ever seen the two properties that are there, we're in favor of it because it's an improvement that will definitely make, well, it's what the area is becoming anyway, but it's an improvement that'll make a difference in the appearance of A1A along there.
Perfect.
Okay?
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir. Your name and address for the record, please.
James McGarry, 1442 Southeast 6th Street. I don't want to be too elementary with the commissioners and the mayor, because you've been through this before in other situations. But I want to bring to your attention some basic concepts, one of which is these variances are going to set a precedence in an area that is prone to request variances along that whole strip. This is just the beginning. Actually, it has begun many years ago, where variances were critical. The investor comes in, they see a piece of property. All the arguments being made tonight is based on financial reward by the developer. As far as the community is concerned, 2 residential properties on those lots have far less activities than a multi-structure like they're going to put on. So don't equate 2 single homes as having less impact as opposed to, or as much impact as a big structure like that. So please, commissioners, keep in mind, this is just the beginning or the continuation of an ongoing inundation of developers trying to develop what land there is. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
Pam Militello, 884 Southeast 19th Avenue. I met with the developers, and a few other people did too, and I'm not typically in favor of variances, especially on the beach area. But I've looked at this project and the two properties that are now with the homes, and I'm not looking at this project because it's pretty or anything like that, because they all make them look like they're pretty when they build them. But I think for development on that portion of A1A, I'm not opposed to what they're requesting. I understand you may be opening the door, but I think that because of the properties, the size that they are, and it backs up to a city parking lot, that I think that the variances that they're requesting are not, overly zealous, and I don't have a problem with it, and I wouldn't be at all hesitant to tell you if I did. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner. Name and record, or name.
Bet Willett, 2646 Emerald Way Circle.
And your record also, if you can give that to us.
No record. You all know that I am 100% against overdevelopment, especially on the beach. And I've been here before, and I have stated emphatically that I think certain projects were overdeveloped, that the variances were not legal, and I've said it before. When I see a project like this that doesn't offend me, I met with Jack Hawk, and he explained everything. It looks good. It's within our code almost completely, and it's the kind of development that I would support on our beach. This is the kind of thing that I think that will enhance that corner, and I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Name and address for the record, please.
Marge Hilton, 1101 Southeast 5th Court. And I also met with the developer, and I'm also very concerned with variances. However, just like Bet said and Pam said, in this particular project, it looked to me like it's a very good development, and I agree with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. Jerry Lee, 4311 Crystal Lake Drive. I wasn't going to be able to, I was not had plans on talking about this until the next meeting, as we have plans to develop the last remaining golf courses in Deerfield Beach to development. I wasn't going to bring it up till the next meeting about the cautionaries of developing high-rise condominiums on the beach, because it seems like this is the progression of the city, to develop, and develop. So it wasn't going to be until the next meeting where I was going to bring this up, until I see this now. And I would like to ask the commission to proceed with caution. Quite a bit of development plans are going on right now, and I think we need to be cautionary. And until I study more about what's going on, I will come back with more details. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public like to speak on this project? Yes. Name and address, please.
Barbara Moriarty, 617 Emerald Way West. I too have been very cautious about overdevelopment on the beach, but I think this particular development doesn't seem to be, quote, hurting anyone. I think the parking lot, the cars in the parking lot aren't going to care if there's a building or that's a little bit closer than it should be. And you have both sides are in agreement. And so I think it's probably going to be a nice addition to the beach area.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to speak? We'll close the public hearing then. Commission comments? Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes, I sure wish we brought up the picture of the two houses that this is going to replace. If you know these two houses, I'll explain it. If you see what this is replacing and look at this, I understand, and it's not going higher than the law allows. Those houses have been there as long as I can remember Deerfield. They're totally 1,000% neglected. There's bees in the one building. There's falling down. They're an eyesore right on A1A. And then we have somebody willing to invest in probably some of the most prestigious property in our city and do a good job with minor variances. As a matter of fact, the Coat building right next door, which I literally walk by, I'd say 5 or 6 or almost 7 days a week. I can't tell you how many years I didn't even know it had a pool. It's hidden, just like this will be hidden. If you look from the parking lot to the back of these buildings, I guess I shouldn't keep on dwelling on this, but what this is replacing is horrendous in the most prestigious street on our town. So I am for this. I don't think it's these variances. You have both neighbors on each side are approving. They know what I know, how it will improve even the value of their property, because this is outstanding. So if you're catching any enthusiasm for this property and this thing in my area, District 1, I hope you do understand I'm in favor of this.
Thank you. Commissioner Parnes?
This looks like a very nice project. I keep hearing the argument, once you start, everything has a variance. I will say this commission doesn't flatly approve variances. Each one is taken on an individual basis. This is not the same, for instance, as the hotel that went up that required 9. That's going up in the Cove Shopping Center. This is a beautiful building. They're talking about selling them for apartments for a lot of money, and there's only 8. It doesn't obstruct anybody's view. It's certainly nice to look at. And the residents around it seem to say, okay. So let's move on.
Thank you, Mr. Parnes. Commissioner Battle?
Yes, sir. And I guess this is to Eric. Mr. McGarrett mentioned the traffic in the area, and certainly we're going to have more traffic in the area than what we would have if we only had two houses there, one way or the other. Did we take a look at that, or do we know what the increase in traffic is going to be?
Well, it's 6 additional residential units. And on an IT scale, the apartment complex actually is less than a single-family home. So it's a minimal net loss gain. So there wasn't a traffic study
It would be
per se.
considered, and when they look at traffic, they're called de minimis. It would be
Minimus, okay. Second thing that I want to address, and this city, by way of the audience, and this commission knows how I feel about variances. I have said time and time again that, we're operating in this city based on archaic rules and regulations that we have set forth. Maybe it is now time for us, and this is going, Eric, I want you to look at this and see what we can do. Maybe it's now time for us to look at what is required in different areas and set our variances for the areas based on the particular area. Maybe the variances, for instance, for the beach would be different from the variances that we get over in District 2, one way or the other. But to have a plan which says that, that's going to always keep people coming back for variances. We need to do something about it. We need to definitely look at our ordinances and see what we can do. And maybe if we take this city beach area, there's a certain amount of variances or whatever the case may be, or a certain amount of rules and regulations that we can place in that particular area. District 2 or closer to the highway, there's a lot more. You see where I'm going? Yes. And let's take a look at it from that standpoint so that we can define requirements of, different requirements for different areas, which I think would help us to solve this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Drosky?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me just start to say that I'm troubled by the variance requests. It looks like a beautiful project. I'm certainly aware of what's there now. This would be a huge improvement to the area and to District 1. But a variance, as it's in our land development code, is for a hardship to the property. That's the way it's defined. And during the presentation, I didn't hear anything with respect to a hardship to the property. I heard, financial costs, sales costs, and economic hardship to the developer. And I'm certainly sympathetic with that for such a beautiful project like this, but we have a land development code to uphold. And I was on planning and zoning for 8 years before coming to this commission, and my opinion is not new and shouldn't be known to anyone who attended any of those meetings that I'm not a fan of variances. If I could have worked at the planning and zoning level to get a project without variances before it came to the commission level, that's what I tried to work with the developers and architects and engineers to do. This is coming to us with 5 requests for variances. One, and I respectfully disagree with my colleague from District 1. They're not minor variances. The first one is a difference of 17 feet on the side setback on the north side, a difference of 14 feet roughly on the side setback on the south side, 17.5 feet roughly on the rear setback, a 3-foot difference in the landscape buffer, and then the last one I'll give you is negligible because it's less than a foot for the pool setback. So we're being asked, this is our first variance request for this new commission. I think the public's comments are well taken, that this is how and the future that we're setting for this commission when it comes to variances. And we do risk opening Pandora's box when it comes to variance requests to us in the future. So I want to be consistent from the get-go. I'm not against the project, but I am against variances, and this puts me in a very difficult position.
I'd like to make a motion.
But-
Oh, you want to speak?
Yeah, I would like to call who's been, press their light. There's a light, there's a little button over there.
Okay, I thought everybody spoke.
No, sorry, Commissioner Parnas?
Yes, I was going to make a motion that we approve this.
We usually let the commissioner of the area do it.
Well, if you'd like to go ahead.
Then you should say thank you.
Commissioner, if we could all just one at a time. Commissioner Parnas, if you might want to hold off on that, I think someone else would like to speak. Would you like to wait on your motion before we hear from Vice Mayor Miller?
No, I'm good. I was going to make a motion.
All right, Commissioner Parnas, you want to stand with your motion?
Go ahead, Joe.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this project.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Before we vote, though, I just want my comments on it. I am concerned about the variances on this because they are significant. These are not minor variances that we're asking for here. It is an unusual location, and where I'm torn with it is that while I do see some hardship, I don't see the significant hardship that would justify approving these variances. What I do see, though, is a unique situation and where it's located that the impact of granting these variances is certainly less than what it would be in other areas. So that doesn't meet the hardship necessarily, but in my opinion, looking at this, the damage that could be done by granting this is less than the damage of having this project go away compared to what we have there now. So that's where I'm torn with it. So with that said, we have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Battle? What am I? Is there a motion?
There's a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, and what are we approving, Andy?
You would be approving the variant, well, you'd be approving the site plan with the variant.
The project, yeah.
Yes.
Approving the project.
Can I approve the project without approving the variance?
Without the variance, there's no project. Putting you in a tough position.
Yeah, I am in a tough position. I like my colleague here. The building is a great building or whatever, but like my other colleague on the other end, when I first read it, I couldn't see the hardship. So I'm going to have to go no on this one. I can't see that hardship.
Commissioner Drosky?
No.
Commissioner Parnes?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Gantz?
Yes.
I think Eric, we need four for the variance, right? Correct, Nicole? Yeah, I'm sure we do.
If we could hear from the,
We need four.
The supermajority in order for a variance to pass, yes.
so this was a 4/5 vote that was needed?
Yes.
And it's failed at this point. Okay. It is failed at this point. Sorry, thank you. No, at this point, it's close, sorry.
I didn't realize how it worked.
Okay. You do have the opportunity, if any of us on here on the prevailing side, any of you on the prevailing side, which in this particular case, City Attorney, on the prevailing side, that would mean the noes.
The noes. Someone for the noes could make a motion for
The nays, I should say.
The nays. The nays.
The
yeah,
noes.
No, it's not like the nays could do it at this meeting or at the next meeting. It's up to you. It's up to the two nays.
Well, let me do it. Does it have to be in the form of a motion?
Well, the motion for reconsideration, yes, you could make, you would have, yes. Someone, you could make the motion for reconsideration, someone on the other side could make a motion, could second it. But yes, you'd have to make a motion to reconsider the vote. If that motion was made and seconded, then you would have a vote on that. And if your motion for reconsideration passed, then you would have nullified the previous vote and you're back to square one. And then you'd make a new motion on the matter.
But I couldn't do anything which says that I like the project. Let's get rid of the variances and come back.
At this point, I'm going to move forward then with the audience to be heard portion of our meeting. City Attorney, if you could please read the
No
rules.
no comments shall be, these are non-agenda items, no comments shall be made related to the personal life or personal qualities of any person, and no language would offend persons of ordinary sensibilities shall be permitted. Mayor, 3 minutes to speak, the mayor may extend the time by 1 minute.
Anyone from the public like to speak? Non-agenda items? Not seeing anyone from the public willing to speak, and close the public portion of the audience to be heard. I believe that's a first. In the 10 years that I've been attending commission meetings, that is a first. We'd like to move forward with our public hearing then, the first reading that
An
we have.
ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, amending the City of Deerfield Beach land development regulations, amending 98103 relating to reasonable accommodation procedures, providing for additional requirements and annual recertification pertaining to severability clause.
I'm sorry, Mr. Attorney, we're going to wait until we have some sort of order here, until people can leave. Sir, if you have a comment, could you please wait till outside? Thank you.
Edwin, thank you. Not helping themselves. Okay. Mayor, would you like me to?
Yes, please, if you could read it again.
A number of months ago, you requested that I review a procedure that was just employed by the town of City of Delray Beach with regard to reasonable accommodations. This is an amendment to an existing ordinance. Really, what it does, besides clarify some points, is provide that if a reasonable accommodation is granted, and what is a reasonable accommodation? Pursuant to the Fair Housing Act, the FHA, and the Americans with Disability Act, the ADA, if a disabled person wishes to get relief from the zoning ordinance, and whether that be for a group home or someone who is a recovering alcoholic or drug addict who's getting treatment and in recovery, wishes to occupy a residence with more than 3 unrelated persons, they apply for what's called a reasonable accommodation. Now, under the ADA, it's indicated that we have to be able to consider those applications because the theory is, and the accepted by the courts is that those persons in recovery need to live in groups of more than 3. So to afford them the same opportunity to live in a single-family neighborhood, you have to at least have a procedure to grant reasonable accommodations. And we do have that procedure just like most other cities do. But what we wanted to do is to retain more control over any home that is given a reasonable accommodation, even if it's for autism, other different disabilities. What we want to do is if we grant that reasonable accommodation, we want to be able to revisit that after a period of 2 years. So that person would have to come back, the owner of the home who is housing those persons, and seek a reasonable accommodation a second time, and then prove up their case again, so that the special master who hears these can make a determination whether they were being true to the commitments made and the other issues. So the mayor thought it would provide an additional protection for the single-family neighborhoods, and we have the precious few abilities to do that given the status of the law. And so what this does, it gives a little more control, and it also protects, what we want to do is protect the residents of those homes to make sure that the promises made by the person starting the home are kept, and so that those people in recovery are living in a quality environment that will assist them in the recovery. So this is for their protection clearly as well. And so that's what it does. It's a minor change, but I think a significant one to allow the city that degree of oversight. And it's recommended by staff that this be approved.
Commissioner Battle?
Yes, sir. There, in this particular ordinance, when we get down to the whereas, and it reads, whereas the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach desires to update its reasonable accommodation ordinance to provide for a requirement to have applicants recertified on an annual basis that they are disabled, and that there is a continued need for the reasonable accommodation, and it goes on and on. When I first read this, Andy, I had some concern, because the distinction we need to make is for the owner of the property, But when we get to, on an annual basis, that they are disabled, who are we talking about?
Okay.
Are we talking about the residents or whatever? Because you can misconstrue this to mean that you're talking about the residents. So I want to make sure that the language in here is very clear and that it's only pointing towards the people that own the sober homes. Because if we do this, or if we ever get to the place where somebody challenges us on the fact that we're asking disabled people to recertify
Okay.
every 2 years, that is patently against the law.
Oh, okay.
And that's not what
And-
HUD intended. So we just need to rework the
I
language.
think that's a well-taken comment, and what we will do is, we'll try to, even though it's difficult for lawyers to do this, we'll try to have it written in English next time.
I'll help
And have you, so that you can, so that it'll be clear, and I think it's a well-taken point. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yeah, we picked 2 years. Is that by law, or
You
is
could
that
do-
just a
yeah,
suggestion?
yeah,
I was thinking of 1 year.
You
I mean,
could-
if it's a bad apple, you're gonna know that in 6 months.
Delray Beach did it on an annual basis, did it annually.
Yeah, I mean, why, I mean, the neighborhood has to live with something that's not what it's purported to be for 24 months? I mean, you would find out in less than a year if this is just a wrong.
If, I don't think I don't think that will change the title, and we haven't advertised it yet, so if you want to make that amendment,
I think what I just suggested is reasonable, and I think what Gloria said was reasonable, but I think you don't have to, why would a neighborhood have to live with a illegal operator or
So you can
somebody
make
that
it a-
misrepresented themselves going in?
a motion to approve with a change to an annual reapplication.
Yes, that's what I would like.
Thank you. I agree with you 100%, Vice Mayor Miller. I think that on this particular case, and as the city attorney said, we are limited in what our protections are for single-family neighborhoods when it comes to group homes, and we're certainly not looking to do anything that would discriminate because we know that they are a protected class. But what this does is give us something that people can grandstand and say, well, gosh, let's put a moratorium in place. Well, we did that in the city of Deerfield Beach. We did a moratorium to look at what some of our options are to better improve things. This is what's being done in some of the areas that are hardest hit, much like we are, with group homes that might not be compatible necessarily with some of our single-family residences. But this gives us an added ability to, one, protect the people that are there, because they are a protected class, and it gives us the opportunity to protect our neighborhoods as well. And I think Commissioner Miller's point about making this annually instead of every 2 years is a good one. So I would encourage someone to please second that motion.
I'll second it.
Anyone else on the commission care to comment on this? Before, we're going to take it to the public. Public to be heard on this item? Please come up.
Jim McGarry, 1442 Southeast 6. I'm not familiar with this ordinance. It seems very specific. Does it by chance include what the legislators in Tallahassee are doing right now with these homes that are being rented out?
No.
It is not in this ordinance.
It's not at all related to that. It's related to requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Fair Housing Act. No.
Fine. If I can encourage the commission to consider ordinances regulating these homes that are being rented weekly.
That is.
We already have that in place, so we've already put something forward on
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
that.
That is very critical. I appreciate your effort.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public?
Richard Rosenzweig, Farnamede, Deerfield Beach. On this particular ordinance, these single-family homes that are being used for residences, if they're 3-bedroom homes or 4-bedroom homes that are being purchased for this purpose, I hope they're being limited to one person per bedroom, and whatever the limit is for individuals unnamed in those homes, to make sure that we don't have where they subdivide these bedrooms and have multiple people in a home that's not made and accommodated for that particular residence. And I don't know if this ordinance has that in, I don't see it, but I would suggest that we limit as much as we can with ADA to the size of the residence and the space availability, so we don't overcrowd it. Like some of these homes I've seen have 18 and 20 people in a home that was designed for like 4 or 5 people, 6 people. So that's only my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public wish to comment? And close the public portion to be heard. Commissioners, any further comment regarding this?
I could make a motion that we approve it with the one-year
amendment.
provision, with the amendment of 1 year.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please have a roll call.
Commissioner Battle?
Yes.
Commissioner Drosky?
Yes.
Commissioner Parnes?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Gantz?
Yes. Thank you very much for the support on that. I appreciate that. Consent agenda item number 8 we have.
Well, we
Moving
have
to the consent agenda item. We also have some addendums as well to the consent
12A
agenda.
and 12B as amended.
Are there any polls for the consent agenda? No. I just had one, item number 12. Any other polls, though?
12B.
12B?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Battle. All right, seeing no other polls, we ask for a motion for
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 12 and 12B for further discussion.
Before we ask for a second from that, we hear from the public on this, please? Anyone from the public care to comment on the consent agenda items minus item number 12 and 12B? Not seeing anyone from the public coming forward, close the public to be heard portion. Commissioner Miller, you have a motion.
We approve the consent agenda minus 12 and 12B.
We have a
Second.
Commissioner Parnes with a second. We have a motion and a second. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Battle?
Yes.
Commissioner Drosky?
Yes.
Commissioner Parnes?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Gantz?
Yes. On item number 12 that I asked to be pulled, there's just, and this might seem ticky-tacky, but I want to make sure that this is clear, because I know one of the objectives of the City Commission is to focus on customer service. And there's an item in there that we're changing that has to do with if there is a dumpster pickup, and I believe the term that's in there, the term is regarding if the driver, I can't remember the term exactly, but the issue is with people waiting for a time limit. If they're still loading their dumpster and they've called out the driver to come pick this up and forcing the city staff to have to wait for the dumpster to still be filled, there's a $35 per hour charge should we have to wait. I just want to make sure that clock doesn't start ticking right away. I want to make sure that we're using some common sense approach and that it's customer service oriented on that. City Manager?
Yeah, so I have Mr. Gressick here, but I'll go ahead and address that. The standby fee for $35 in case we do have any drivers that may be waiting for an extended period of time, because that gets them off a route and servicing other areas. Mr. Gressick, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
No, I would just add,
Detail-wise
our philosophy is customer service oriented, so whenever there's an opportunity for us to go that extra mile, we will certainly take that in consideration, and that fee's only going to be used for very, very extenuating circumstances where we've got to wait for a significant amount of time, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It is not worth the effort for $35 to have an upset customer, that's for sure.
Okay, good. As long as there's that understanding, we'll leave it as it is. Do we have a motion, or do we want to do these together then? Or let's do this one separately. It's consent agenda item number 12. Do we have a motion and a second to approve this?
Make a motion to approve number 12.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Battle?
Yes.
Commissioner Drosky?
Yes.
Commissioner Parnes?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Gantz?
Yes. Item 12B pulled by Commissioner Battle.
Yes. This is an item that deals with the attorney and his staff. And the thing that concerned me about this, and I want something to be put in here which says that if and or when Mr. Marotta should retire, once he's gone over to the Sirota law firm, that the commissioner has, that our business does not automatically stay with the Sirota firm. We will have the if we want to, we will have the right to go out and bid out for the service, the legal services.
And one of the things that actually, I can now say this publicly, because we're doing it publicly, Commissioner Miller had actually broached the issue with me, and what he had asked me when I was saying as amended, he had asked me, and hopefully this will resolve your issue, is that, and this is really saying something that you have this power anyway. You can, there is no way that a city attorney could be forced upon you, or a firm could be forced upon you. You could turn them at will. So while I do not believe it is needed, Commissioner Miller requested this, and I think this would resolve your concern. We would add to the resolution just a statement that either party can terminate the assignment at any time. So if I retire or whatever, or if something happens, or if I do something you don't like, I mean, you may decide that you're tired of me at one point.
Night's still young.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I could wear out my welcome pretty quickly here. If anything happened, you have the right to terminate at any time for convenience.
It's like at will.
So basically, it's at will. You are in control at all times.
Okay.
And so I didn't realize you were going to bring that up, but it turns out that you were both thinking the same thing, and that will be covered. And so when you approve it as amended.
Okay.
And as I said, really, we're restating a right you already had. We don't think it's necessary, but if it gives you that level of comfort, and I see that that's what you want, we can do that.
I'd also like to state for the public that there is no financial impact to the public on this
Same, everything is the
agreement.
same, yeah.
Okay. Do we have a motion and a second?
Make a motion to approve 12B.
I'll second it. Okay, Bernie.
We have a motion for Vice Mayor Miller. We have a motion seconded by Commissioner Parnas. A roll call, please.
Commissioner Battle?
Oh, I'm sorry. Before we move forward with that, we have the public to be heard on this. And from the public like to comment on this? Seeing no one, I'll close the public portion to be heard. And if we could do a roll call.
Commissioner Battle?
Yes.
Commissioner Drosky?
Yes?
Commissioner Parnas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Gantz?
Yes. Thank you. We have one general item. I believe actually we have two general items.
Yeah, resolution, I guess we're on item 14, well, I guess we're on item 13. How about 13? A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the award of RFP 2016 to IBI Group Florida for the Dixie Highway Business Study. Did you want me to speak that for you? Mayor, Commissioner Battle approached me on this issue because she has property interests in that area with her family, and in an abundance of caution, she has asked that I contact the Commission on Ethics to make a determination and give her the guidance as to whether she might have a voting conflict on this issue. Now, my first inclination was that there was not, but however, the rules on voting conflicts have changed in the last few years. I contacted the General Counsel for the Ethics Commission, and I do think for protection, it would be advisable that she get that opinion before voting on it, and I would even advise not participating until she gets that opinion. So I'm moving quickly on that. I think I can get that pretty quickly, possibly by the next meeting, the meeting after that at the latest. So for that purpose, I think it'd probably be appropriate to table the matter. I apologize for that, but that, we need to be cautious on these matters.
With that being said, make a motion to table this to the next meeting, or the soonest meeting you can get us the written approval or non-approval of her participating. The soonest you get it, we can have it back.
Commissioner Parnas?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Battle?
Yes.
Commissioner Drosky?
Yes?
Commissioner Parnas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Gantz?
Yes.
Item 14, I'm sorry. A resolution of the City of Deerfield Beach appointing Alexander Brum as alternate member to the Planning and Zoning Board.
Anyone care to comment on this, regarding this?
I'd like to make a motion to approve. It's my district.
I'll second.
Anyone from the public care to comment on this before? Not seeing anyone coming forward, like close the public portion to be heard. Can we please do a roll call?
Commissioner Battle?
Yes.
Commissioner Drosky?
Yes?
Commissioner Parnes?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Gantz?
Yes. Okay. City manager comments?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Gans, Vice Mayor, members of the City Commission, and the audience. I just have a few issues that I think are of importance to be heard tonight. Number one, I'm happy to say that everyone's efforts, including the City Commission's, worked in our favor with the Florida State Legislature. They did restore funding for the Alzheimer's Center, so it is in their budget, so thank you for the support. Second thing, pertaining to the state legislature, right now, the Knowles Memorial Park still has $400,000 in funding as of earlier this afternoon, so we're going to keep pressure on that as well, and hopefully, knock on wood, that stays in there. I believe it's the next meeting, or maybe the meeting after City Commission meeting, we will be bringing forward landscape presentation, and then of course the ordinance for the residential update that the City Commission has been requesting. So Eric and his staff have been working diligently on bringing something forward for the City Commission. Also, we'll be bringing forward a presentation and then the ordinance for the vacation rentals. We are going to see what happens at Tallahassee with any legislation before we bring that forward, of course. The next thing would be strategic planning. Right now, we'll be reaching out to each individual commissioner to set up a meeting with a facilitator for individual meetings. And the week of June 5th, we'll actually have a facilitation for the City Commission as a whole, and that will be a public workshop, and we're hoping to hold it at the Hillsborough Technology Center. We do not have a date yet. We were looking for June 6th, which is a City Commission night, but because of the tabling of the last item, and we don't want to hold up the DVR consultant, whoever that may be at that meeting, and some other items, we'll probably try to do it another evening. So, and let's see through my notes here. And the last thing is, we did have the honor this morning to meet with Holly Owen, who is the sister-in-law of Ryan Owen, who was a Navy SEAL that was killed in action in Yemen in January. The family, they are from South Florida, and some of the family actually does live here in Deerfield Beach, including Ryan's brother, who is also a Navy SEAL. And they approached the city to do a memorial run in the first Saturday of November in memory of Ryan, and it would be a fundraiser for their foundation where they give 100% of their monies back into a charity, a Gold Star Family charity. So we will be bringing that forward in June. It will be a very special event for the city. I believe the Miami Dolphins are also going to be involved in this, as well as some other prestigious organizations. And we're certainly happy that they want to do it here in the city of Deerfield Beach versus Boca or Fort Lauderdale. So this is very special for the city. Yeah.
May I ask on that, if you don't mind?
Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Is that thought of one of an annual event or a one-hour
This
only,
will be
or-
the first of an annual event. They would like to do it
and
every
route
year.
something like the Dunn's Run or something like that?
Actually, this route, they're doing it in memory of Ryan Owen, who was a SEAL, and they will be running it on the beach, like they do during
interesting.
what they call the BUDS training, which is before they
SEALs,
go into Hell Week. So it will not be run on the
that's cool.
paved. pavement. It'll actually be run on the beach, and so we'll be coordinating that. We will
Thank
be
you for that clarification.
requesting probably shutting down part of Ocean Way and the main beach parking lot. So
Good.
So that event application will be coming forward in June, and that's all I have, Mayor Gantz. Thank you.
While we're on that, City Manager, regarding that, we just approved the Rance Classic volleyball tournament, which is in November also, I believe. So we need to make sure that we coordinate that, and there's no
Yeah, there are
conflicts
no events.
at this time.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why we picked November 4th.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Miller, or excuse me, Vice Mayor Miller.
No comment at this time.
Commissioner Battle?
Okay, yeah, yes, I do have some comments. By way of, I know we just approved, and Burgess, I really need to sit with you before we do some of these things. We just approved the bulk trash issue or ordinance, and as I'm reading, there's some things that really disturb me when I'm reading, and I have a knack of red penciling them, but this one is really critical. And before we do these or bring these before the commission, we need to read and reread. On Section A, Section 5871, bulk waste A, it reads, bulk trash shall be placed adjacent to the pavement or travelway of the street or alley. You know, that's things like that we shouldn't be letting come before. We should not let those type of issues or documents come before this commission to be approved, because as we approve them, technically it goes down, or the language that's there goes into the particular ordinance. So we need to read and reread these documents so that we don't make critical mistakes like this. And I don't know, since we approved this, whether or not we go back over them and redo them for language or whatever. You know, I've been seeing some of the older ones, and I don't think that we go back and redo that. But that one is critical. You know, adjacent to the pavement, it should be pavement.
Yep.
So we need to, that one is very critical. I would like, you and I met sometimes this week concerning the annexation or the annexed area, and in the coming week or whatever, please keep me abreast of that, because we did something way back when, and I checked and rechecked that document, and it said that they were supposed to be, Broward County by 2015 should have sent over the zoning, or that should be ours. But then when I checked with some of the people in zoning, and what is it, Eric, the what's that other department?
Building?
Not building, code enforcement. We should already have that. But what they're telling me, or what they told me at the meeting down in that particular area, is that we're still using Broward County's ordinances as it relates to that particular area. And if they said in their agreement that they were going to turn it over to us, we should be using our ordinances basically in order to deal with the code violations in that particular area. So we need to get together somehow and let's see what's going on in that particular area. Thank you.
If I could respond. Yeah, thank you. I already met with Eric about the rezoning of that area to bring it under the city zoning, and that's something that we'll be working on and bringing forward quickly, including the medical zoning overlay that we had also talked about along the hospital. Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner Battle?
That's it.
Commissioner Parnas?
I want to compliment the audience again, for participating in a most civil manner, and I hope you've seen the difference up here, how we treat you in a more civil manner. It makes the meetings more interesting, more productive, and that's what we're all here for. So I want to thank you again for your participation.
Thank you, Commissioner Parnas. Commissioner Drosky?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to remind everyone that this upcoming Saturday, May 6th, is my next Office hours, I do this every meeting. It's from 10 to noon here at City Hall. I think there's only a couple appointments left, and I think based upon one of my votes tonight, the remaining appointments may be full. But that's this Saturday from 10 to noon. The other thing is I'd like to mention that this past Saturday, April 29th, I was at the opening ceremony in Tradewinds Park for a micro apiary that they have there. And for anyone who knows what an apiary is, it's basically a fancy word for a beehive. There's only 2 of them in the entire state. I learned a lot this day. There's only 2 of them in the entire state. The first one was in Oakland Park, and the second one was in Tradewinds Park, and that was the second one to open. And they give you a very informative lecture about bees and how good they are for environment in many ways, mostly through the pollination. And in addition, basically the habitat of the bees through development is decreasing in the state of Florida. And we rely on the bees for our fruit trees that we have here in the state of Florida. So these micro apiaries should become a trend of the future to help, protect the bees in our particular state. So I also learned that these apiaries have to be 5 miles apart. So I asked the director of parks for Broward County, Mr. West, if it was possible to put one in in Quiet Waters Park. And he indicated that they would have to do some further research, that Tradewinds and Quiet Waters may be within that 5-mile radius, so they may not be far enough apart, but that doesn't prevent the city of Deerfield Beach from doing one on its own. And I approached Mr. Gressick in the back there at Earth Day this past weekend to see what we could do for Deerfield Beach. And one of the individuals who happened to be at the ceremony that I was at, this Mr. Coldwell, John Coldwell, also has approached, I guess, the city of Deerfield Beach, but he could be more vigilant, I guess, in his efforts to bring something to Deerfield Beach. So, Mr. Gressick, I'd like to work with you. If you could get me Mr. Coldwell's information, I'd like to contact him directly and get him off center so we could move forward with this for Deerfield Beach. We have room at the Central City campus to do a project like this. And when you think of an apiary, I had never been to one before. This is not a big project at all. The footprint is 10 feet by 16 feet, so it's actually very small. And these apiaries can house up to 2 million bees. And it's not the public nuisance that you would think that they are, because they have, the walls for the apiary basically go straight up, and the bees, they're kind of like a jet. When they come out, they go up and then they disseminate. I mean, it's not like a big swarm that you're going to get covered by bees if you're near this particular location, because that's not true. It takes one bee 26,000 trips, more than bee information you ever wanted to learn tonight. One bee takes 26,000 trips to produce 1 ounce of honey. So it takes a lot of bees and a lot of trips to produce honey and to pollinate, all of the trees and flowers that we have here in South Florida. So I personally would like to see this particular project move forward, to see what we can do here in the city of Deerfield Beach. And if Mr. Gressick and staff can work with me on making that happen, that would be greatly appreciated. And last, and I'd also like to say also, that was a good opportunity for me as the newbie on the commission to meet some of the county commissioners as well, because 5/9 of the the county commission was there, and a representative from Mr. Deutsch's, our congressman, office was there as well. So it gave me an opportunity, because I have this little project called Southwest 10th Street you may have heard about in my pocket that I want to talk to them about. So that was a good opportunity for me to at least talk to them and put, plant that seed in their ear. And last but not least, I think along with all of my colleagues, we're at the grand opening for DNA Labs, which was in District 2. Kirsten Charleston has a fantastic operation there. I just wanted to mention that while we were there. It looked like really like a CSI kind of environment there, lots of high-tech equipment. And that's right here in the city of Deerfield Beach. She employs roughly 30 individuals. These are all high-energy college graduates with their master's degrees. One of them, Christine, I don't remember her last name. I mean, this is like her passion, this forensic science. And it was just a great operation to see the folks that were there. It's a younger younger employment that they had there, and just it was very refreshing to see, like the new generation of this particular company. And that's right here in Deerfield Beach in District 2. So it was a very eye-opener. I thought it was a great experience. They gave you a tour and to wear a mask, the whole thing. They were very, very formal about it, but I had a great time, and I appreciate the education that I got there. Otherwise, that's all that I have, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Drosky, tell the truth. When you went to the apiary, were you expecting to see apes? Or-
On the advice of counsel, I decline to answer.
Good choice. I would like to, a couple things I'd like to say that on May 4th, we have a couple events coming up here in the city of Deerfield Beach. On May 4th, this Thursday, we have several actually. The Chamber of Commerce has its teacher appreciation breakfast. That'll be at the Doubletree at 7:30 a.m., so I encourage everyone to attend. Also on May 4th, that is National Day of Prayer. Vice Mayor Miller, we look forward to having you lead that once again and keep that tradition going, and I thank you for standing in for me on that as well. So thank you. That will be here at noon, from noon to 1 p.m. for the National Day of Prayer. Also on May 4th, there's a grand opening of the Brazilian Community Center, which is located at 571 East Sample Road at 7 p.m. I encourage everyone to come out and support our Brazilian community for the new Brazilian Community Center. And I do want to give thanks for a couple of things that we recently had. Our Pig Out in the Park that was put together by the Chamber of Commerce, another outstanding event. It was over at Quiet Waters Park, and it was great to have an event out west in the western portion of Deerfield Beach. A lot of fun, great setup, and the food was amazing. So outstanding job on that. Speaking of good food, Cuisine of the Region, again, from our Northeast Focal Point, our traditional event. Outstanding event, even if it was in a city in which we may have some controversy with. We couldn't have picked a better location. Another outstanding event for a worthy cause, so kudos to them. And the Relay for Life event that they had at the Butler House as well. I encourage all of you to support Relay for Life and our local teams that we have here in Deerfield Beach, but that was another outstanding event, so thank you very much for that. Just a couple of things. The building department, I've talked to the city manager, and one thing I would like to see us do is to reevaluate and take a critical look at our procedures and processes when it comes to our building department. As the push to be customer service friendly, one of the things I think we need to do is start there. We need to look for how to make it more efficient, how to streamline some of the procedures that we have. And look at other cities and find out and talk to the business community who really deals with other building departments and look for some creative ideas on how we can improve our process, because if we can have that nailed down and have people talk about Deerfield Beach's building department as being one they definitely want to work with. Doesn't mean we have to be lackadaisical, does not mean that that we'll do fewer inspections. What it means is we are efficient, and I think that's what we should all strive for. The other thing is to look at, see if we can simplify fees. You know, when you're out there on the campaign trail, it's the season of misinformation, and I was amazed to see letters sent out to places that stated erroneous information regarding our permit fees, such as changing out a water heater, and it's just inaccurate. But one thing that we can look at is to see if there's anything within our fees to make sure that we simplify them. Depending on the circumstance, we might have different layers that are on there that might be complicated for people that come in. We should look to see if we can simplify those to make it as easy as possible. So I know the city manager said he would do that. I want to make sure that the commission's on board before we move forward with something like that. And let me see if I have anything else. Oh, as far as the vacation rentals go, obviously the state might preempt us and do something that's going to change what we have moving forward. We have started a process. We understand that that is an issue. I hope residents also understand that several years ago, the state put something in place that somewhat handcuffed us in what we can do regarding vacation rentals. Well, it shackled us completely, actually, is what it did. But we do have some opportunities to at least put some rules in place to make sure that if vacation rentals are going on in residential neighborhoods, we have the ability to at least try to protect the quality of life for those residents who live next to that. And there are some things that we can do, I feel, moving forward. That is, unless the state legislature makes some more changes that could hamper that. The other thing to watch out with the state legislature, there's a lot of things that are going on up there, and one that could drastically impact us is an addition to another $25,000 homestead exemption addition on top of the 50 that we already have. Now, obviously, there are rules to where that would apply. I think it has to be over $100,000, I believe, the value of the home, but that has the potential to have a tremendous impact on our city. So, and I believe the revenue, looking at that could be a potential close to $2 million hit should they pass that. Now, obviously, if the state legislature passes that, it will go to a vote of the public. The public generally does not like to vote for taxes and certainly would look for anything to try to decrease their tax load. That would have a tremendous impact on it. I think that's something that the cities should have the ability to lower their millage rate as opposed to putting in another exemption that would further the impact on Deerfield Beach would be quite different than it would be in other areas of Broward County because our median home price is lower than the average. So that is something for us to watch out for. So just to make sure everyone is aware of that. With that, I have no other comments. City Attorney, did you have anything that you want to add?
Did not, Mayor.
Okay, I'd like to see a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.
Sitting on it. I was like 4 years. So they wouldn't drop until I got out, right? Pam.